everybody. With Formula 2 now halfway through the year, it's about time we review the season so far, isn't it? This is the F2 show. I'm your host, Fraser Ford, and joining me to review the Formula 2 action from 2023 so far, we have Aaron Harper and Jenny Craig. Welcome both. Aaron, I can't believe we're halfway through the season already. It's flown by, hasn't it? Only a couple of months, but it's gone quickly.
It's a little bit scary, actually, how quick this season is passing. And with the million races that Formula 1 are doing, I mean, Formula 2 have only done, 6 or 7 races? Because obviously Imola was cancelled. So it doesn't feel like very many at all. But of course, they have 2 rounds on a weekend, or 2 races on a weekend. So they've had twice as many opportunities to win races this year.
Exactly that. 12 races so far this season. And Jenny, there's been some really good racing so far, hasn't there? It's been a good one. It's been a good season as 2023 so far.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more competitive than this time last year with Djokovic winning as much as he did. So it's good to see a bit of competition between the Primers and the ARTs.
It has been good, isn't it? And I think there's only one place to start, really, Jenny, isn't there? And that is obviously the championship battle. Frederic Vesti, Teo Pourchaire, Ayumu Iwasa's not too far away, is he? Battling for the title so far this season. And it's been an entertaining battle. And Fred Vesti's, he's kind of put himself in a position where I think a lot of people pre-season were saying Teo Pourchaire, Ayumu Iwasa, maybe Jack Doohan as well. A few people mentioned him as a title contender. I'm not mentioning any names, Emily Sands, but I'm not, and Aaron Harper as well, actually. That was one of your predictions, wasn't it? But I'm not calling you out. Fred Vesti was a name that wasn't really mentioned. And he's kind of put himself in the battle for the championship, hasn't he?
Yeah, I remember you asking me after Australia if I thought that he was a championship contender, and I actually said no. And yeah, he's just been a lot more consistent than I thought he would be. I thought that would be what had let him down. So yeah, it's been good to see that he can get the steady results that you need to make a championship.
Absolutely. Aaron, are you surprised at his consistency? I guess we've mentioned Jack Doohan already, and he was your prediction pre-season. Maybe surprised that he isn't amongst the title contenders so far?
I don't think we should be surprised by Vesti's performance because he showed in Formula 3 that he had it. Obviously, his performance last year in Formula 2 with ART alongside Teo Pourchaire was a little bit up and down, but that's to be expected from a first-year attempt in Formula 2. It's a super competitive series to be involved in. And I think there's something to be said for Vesti going back to Prema. And we saw it last year with Djokovic, going back to MP Motorsport in an environment where he's comfortable and it all just works. And I think we all looked past that with Vesti because of maybe his inconsistency last year at ART and Prema also not having such a strong 2022. And they are absolutely bang on it this year, back to being like the Mercedes of Formula 2, if you will. They are just all conquering. They've won 3 of the last 4 rounds, I think. So, 4 races, sorry. They're on a real roll. And to see Fred up there, he's a Mercedes junior. They don't pick slow drivers to put in their junior category. Vesti's obviously delivering. He's at the top of the championship and he's in the pound seat at the moment.
Yeah, and I was going to mention Prema, Jenny, because, they had a disappointing 2022 by their own standards, that is. It seems like they are back, aren't they? And they're back for good.
Yeah, I remember the start of the season, it was looking they were struggling with tyres, I think. Rene Rosin spoke to our Jim at Spain, and he was really happy, as you would be, winning both the races and getting pole position. So they're doing exactly what they need to do to win.
They are indeed. That is the championship contenders so far. And a name we haven't mentioned is, of course, Ollie Bearman. Just outside of the championship battle, 40 points back. But he's had 2 feature race wins this season. And a pretty outstanding weekend in Baku, wouldn't it, Aaron? Should we be mentioning him in the championship battle? 40 points isn't too much in the grand scheme of things, given how many races we've got left, right?
I don't think Ollie Bearman is out of the championship hunt just yet because his pace all through the season has been very, very strong. I would say out of the 3 that have come up from Formula 3 and been sort of expected to do well and gone into what you would consider front-running cars in Formula 2. You've got Arthur Leclerc in the Dams, Ollie Bearman in Prema, and you've got Victor Martins in the ART. Martins and Bearman have been incredibly quick, not always getting their results. Leclerc, for me, hasn't quite shown what he needs to show to almost back the hype, because obviously he's in the shadow of his older brother Charles, who's racing for Ferrari, and that's a difficult shadow to get out from. But Ollie Bearman has been fantastic. His 3 victories back that up. Topping every session in Baku was just incredible. No other driver had ever done that in Formula 2 history. And if say, a Porsche had done it, or perhaps another driver, second or third season, you'd have gone, okay, yeah, cool, because they've got the experience to do that. They've managed their way through a weekend, picked their way through. Ollie Bearman is a rookie in Formula 2, and to pull that off, I think that shows serious talent. Not to mention he took pole position in Baku, where you're doing 200 miles an hour with a bent steering rack. I mean, that would terrify me just going down my street at 30 miles an hour. So kudos to him just for that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? That with Felipe Drugovich last year, when he won the double in Barcelona, I think people were impressed. It was a seriously, impressive weekend. But in his third season, right? And for Ollie Bearman to do that in his rookie season just makes it even more impressive, doesn't it? And does it put him up there with the likes of Charles Leclerc, George Russell, in terms of, really, dominating, not dominating in terms of the championship, but dominating a weekend or numerous weekends in his rookie season, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, you can draw that comparison, but there's still a long way to go. So the fact that he's now gone and backed that up with another pole position and victory around Barcelona, which is a track that they all know. They did testing there not too long ago. So that shows that he's able to dial into different tracks. It wasn't just like Kramer put the car on the track, it worked, and he was able to get the most out of it on that specific circuit. He's now gone and shown that he can do it around what you might call a proper racing track. It is a classic circuit in the fact that it's wide in terms of the track width. There's lots of runoff. There's not that peril of bashing into a wall and damaging your steering rack. But there's still other things that go around there. It's a very high-speed circuit, and the revised layout going back to the fast double right-hander, that takes an amount of commitment and confidence in the car to be able to pull out the lap and keep the tyres together. So he's shown every facet of what you need to be a top racing driver in whatever series he ends up in, because Formula One is super competitive to get into. And by the way, he's a Ferrari junior, and they've just won Le Mans. So maybe, WEC is where he'll end up. But, he's shown that he's got all of the tools in the toolbox. Whether he goes and wins the championship this year or not, I think he's shown enough to show that he's got a bright future in motorsport.
In terms of that link to Ferrari, I asked this on the Barcelona Review podcast, and I'm going to ask it again. Will Ferrari be looking at Ollie Bearman already for Formula One in 2024? Or do you think they will, not in terms of going into the main Ferrari seat, obviously, but in terms of placing him with a Sauber Alfa Romeo or a Haas, or will they be having a look at options in the driver market, or do you think they'll give him another season in Formula 2, depending on how the second half of the season goes, Jenny?
I don't think it'd be a good idea. Just seeing what happened with Sargent this year, I think if he'd have had another year in F2, I think he was pushed in a bit too early. I don't think he's shown what he can fully do in F1. And the same with Tsunoda. He, in his first year, everyone was questioning why he got his seat. Obviously, he's shown now exactly why, and people that watched F2 knew why, because he did an amazing job in his rookie season. But I think it takes a really, really special kind of driver to go into F1 after one season of F2. And I think it can be really harmful to their career as well if it doesn't go how they want to. And especially with Ferrari, they don't really give second chances. And I think it'd be better for him if he did really well this season and then won it next year. I think that would be better for his career. And I think as well, is he 17 or 18?
Just turned 18, yeah.
He's still very young. I don't think that would be the right move for him personally.
Wasn't Max Verstappen a race winner by this point, though? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing, right? And it shows the minerals of these type of drivers, that you have a Max Verstappen, a George Russell, a Charles Leclerc, an Oscar Piastri, whereby they only do one season in Formula 2. They've stepped up. Well, Max Verstappen obviously didn't, but the caliber of driver, in that they do one season and do really well in a rookie season, and they step up into Formula 1 and they can swim, can't they? And I guess that it's working out whether Ollie Bearman is that calibre of driver, or whether he needs one more season in order to really find his feet and finesse his driving ability in order for him to have a really good that rookie season in Formula 1, whether that be in 2024 or 2025. And I think the second half of this season for Ollie Bearman is massive. And if he does really push on and gets very close to, if not wins, the title. And it very much depends on the driver market as well, right? I mean, Haas, for me, aren't going to be looking at taking a rookie on. I think they're very happy with Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg. I think they probably learnt that rookies maybe aren't the way to go, or a bit of dangerous way to go, from having Mick Schumacher, Nikita Mazepin, obviously in the car in 2021. So I think, Ferrari would struggle to put him in a Haas. Would they put him in an Alfa Romeo? Maybe. They've got Teo Pourchaire also knocking on the door. So I think that in terms of the driver market, it's a really big second half of the season for the likes of Teo Pourchaire and Ollie Bearman, isn't it, Aaron, to see who goes where in Formula 1. If anyone goes anywhere in Formula 1, it's such a competitive market out there at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a bad time to be a top Formula 2 driver, isn't it? Because there's not really any Formula 1 seats available. There is, though, the alternatives of Formula E. We're seeing more drivers go across there. And there's always IndyCar. We've seen Christian Lundgaard go out there. He's had a pole position around the Indianapolis road course. Callum Ilot's out there, and so is Marcus Armstrong. So there's avenues for drivers to go now. It's not F1 or bust. If you don't quite make it to Formula 1, there's a way to go and find your home in motorsport. And Nick de Vries has shown that if you do well enough and the market kind of goes in your way, you can always make it back to Formula 1. So never say never. Obviously Ferrari are a powerful brand within motorsport. So who knows where drivers like Ollie Bearman and Fred Vesti and Teo Pourchaire will end up, because Ferrari going into Le Mans and all these other brands that are going to go and pop up in different series, who knows where these drivers will end up.
Definitely. I want to cast back to the beginning of the season when we did our pre-season, get your words out, Fraser, pre-season predictions. And I heard a lot of Ollie Bearman mentioned. I heard Victor Martins mentioned. A name that I didn't hear mentioned was Kush Maney. What a start to the season he's had. Second highest placed rookie. I'm just looking at the standings now. We're only 21 points behind Ollie Bearman, who's the highest placed rookie. He's ahead of Zane Maloney, Victor Martins, who are, again, rookies that were mentioned as maybe even long shots for the title. How surprised are you with how well he's done, Jenny? And, it's just been brilliant, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we all are. When he was in F3, he wasn't really a name that was up there like Martins, Hauger and Bearman were. So for him to come into F2 the way that he has, and with Campos as well, which is a team that haven't really been doing well recently, he's come in, he's scored in all but
one race. Yeah, you are right. Yep.
Which is incredible when you think how competitive it's been this year. And he always seems to be there or thereabouts, just off the podium, but consistently getting them points, which is what I think is exactly what Campos need to get themselves back up. They've had a win this year, but I think next year they'd be wanting more after how much Boschong's been helping them develop.
Definitely, and Kush himself saying that he's obviously learnt a lot from being alongside Ralph Boschong, in the Campos, which is really good. And as you've said, only up until Barcelona, he was only one of 3 drivers to have scored points in every single round so far. Obviously, didn't score points in Barcelona. A bit of a disappointing weekend, but still an unbelievable start of the season. The only 2 drivers to have scored points in every single round so far, Aaron, are now Dennis Hauger and Richard Verschoor. And how do you think Dennis Hauger will be? Maybe assessing the start of the season. Obviously, he was a name that was mentioned for the title. Do you think he'll be disappointed with his start to the season, that he's not higher up the standings, or do you think he'll be saying, you know what, I've had a really bad start to the season, but I'm still fifth in the standings and I've still scored points in every single race. I've had some bad qualifyings, but I've managed to make my way through the field in every single weekend.
You can look at it both ways. It's difficult because on one side, it's probably better than what he had last season in terms of consistency, but he's only had the single victory and it was a sprint race. So he didn't get the big payout for it. Like you say, his qualifying hasn't been as strong as others. And he's not the lead Red Bull Junior either. Ayumu Iwasa is up in third in the championship. So he's got some work to do in terms of, putting himself at the front of the queue to get a Red Bull seat when they eventually decide to change their driver lineup again. So he'll be looking forward to the second half of the season. He'll be targeting a couple of feature race victories. And if he gets them early, say Austria or at Silverstone, then maybe he throws himself into contention for the championship. It's a long shot, but Formula 2 is a wild and competitive series. It could happen. It only needs a couple of DNFs from the guys at the front of the championship standings, and someone putting a couple of wins together will put themselves back into contention. But it's about carrying that form forwards for Dennis Hauger, and his number one target needs to be to catch Ayumu Iwasa and be the top Red Bull Junior, because Helmut Marko will be just looking at who's the highest placed in Formula 2 and going, yep, you'll do, into the AlphaTauri you go.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at his average qualifying for this season. He's got an average qualifying of 10th, a 4th, a 15th, a 10th, a 5th, a 17th, and a 6th. Not exactly the most consistent qualifier, you'd have to say. We know how good Dennis Hauger is in a race trim. So, maybe one for him to work on. Right, shall we have some fun, guys? Shall we have some fun? We predicted a few things pre-season. I think it's fair to say they haven't really gone to plan. A lot of people predicting Jack Doohan, isn't that right, Aaron? For the title. I'm not calling you out, I promise. I thought, halfway through the season, let's make some more predictions. Let's have a bit more fun before the end of the season. So first question, if I could ask you both to name your driver and give a bit of rationale as to why, a driver or team, by the way, it could be a team that you could answer, and give your rationale as to why you think that driver or team is the answer to the question. So first question, can I ask you, Aaron, we'll come to you first, for the driver who has impressed you the most so far this season?
Fred Vesti. It's a very simple answer. He's leading the championship. He's done the best job so far. He's been the most consistent, and that's why we have a points table, because then you can track consistency and who's doing the best job. Ultimately, the table doesn't lie at any point, generally. It does tend to even itself out. That's a bit of a football phrase that we'll use there, but it works for any series that uses a points table. 2 wins in feature races, a sprint race win as well. He won Monaco from pole position. It's pretty much been the perfect start to the season for Vesti. He's got an 11-point championship lead. If he just keeps this level of consistency going, he will be very, very difficult to beat.
I'd go for Iwasa. I wasn't really expecting much from him this year, but last year he showed these flashes of pace that he has this year, but I think he's been very consistent this year, apart from a few instances which have lost him points. There's so many of them as well. There's so many Red Bull Juniors. That's the one that you want to place highest in, because I think that's the one next year that could potentially have a seat. I can't really see Zhou or Bottas going for Porsche, unfortunately.
He's doing very well, I do have to say. And I guess with all of the Red Bull drivers, it's making sure that not only they're good and they're the highest placed Red Bull driver in the Formula 2 series, but also making sure they're that good that they're impressing more than Liam Lawson is over in Super Formula, right? Which is something to consider. Okay, next question. Who has surprised you the most this season? Jenny, we'll come to you for that one first.
I think I'd go for Vesti. Like I said at the start, I wasn't really thinking he was going to keep his consistency, but he has. which proves why he won the championship in Formula Regional. So yeah, I think he's done an amazing job just getting the points where it matters and proving me wrong.
I would go for Oliver Bearman, because to be a rookie and to pull off the achievements that he has so far, that shows, as we've spoken already at length about Ollie, he's doing an incredible job. I mean, he had a pointless first 3 races, then 1 point in Jeddah, and then 2 points at Melbourne. So after 3 rounds, he'd accumulated 3 points. And then he went and won both races in Baku and took pole position. So the character's there, as we've said, everything's there. So I think he's been super impressive. He's probably overperformed what we'd have expected of him.
Yeah, agree with that one. Race of the season so far. Aaron, I'll come to you for this one first.
The Baku feature race, because the sprint race was pretty crazy. So they had to sort of bear all that in mind and how they're going to approach safety car restarts, the propensity for safety cars around Baku and problems. And I think there was a really nice battle at the front between Bearman and Pourchaire. Pourchaire was really racy early on, but Bearman, under a little bit of pressure, kept his head, managed the race, and it was a real sort of coming-of-age moment in Formula 2 for Oliver Bearman. And you couldn't really ask for a much tougher opponent behind you in Pourchaire. So, he did really well. And it was a very, very interesting race, a very interesting weekend all round.
Mine is the sprint in Baku, because I remember shouting, like, what's going on? And I remember I was writing the report, I was rewinding, pausing everywhere, couldn't figure out what everyone had done on that safety car restart. 5 or 6 of the winners went straight on into the wall at turn 1. We had that big moment with Martin where he was on top of another car. It was just chaos. And I remember just thinking, that's what Formula 2 in Baku is about. Just absolute carnage. And I loved it.
I do have to say, I'm not giving my opinion on this, but I'm going to for this one. For me, it is the Baku sprint race as well. Just the drama, wasn't it, of going into turn 1, all braking late, and a bit of a pile up at turn 1. Glad they're all okay. Obviously, all of those drivers were okay, but then the drama after as well between the 2 Prema drivers and Frederick Vesti coming out in the lead, Ollie Bearman just behind him, and then Ollie Bearman getting him just before the safety car came out was very dramatic and definitely my favourite race of the season so far. But Baku overall, I think there's no doubt that has been the weekend of the season so far, is there? Because they were 2 great races and an exceptional performance by Ollie Bearman, which probably put him on the map. And we'll look back in maybe 10, 15 years' time on Ollie Bearman's career. And Baku was the weekend in Formula 2 that really put him on the map as a top class driver. Next one then. Who needs a better second half of the season, Aaron?
Arthur Leclerc. As I've said, he's racing in the shadow of his brother. Obviously, Charles is a top Formula 1 driver, race winner, championship contender last year. Not having the best time in Formula 1 this year, let's be honest. And Arthur is not having quite the season I thought he might with Dams. And if you compare him to his teammate, Ayumu Iwasa, up in 3rd, and then you make the comparison towards drivers who've also got promoted from Formula 3 to Formula 2. Bearman's up in 4th, Kushmani's 8th, Maloney, Martin's all ahead of Leclerc as well. And I haven't seen that stunning pace that I thought might be there. I think there's more to come from him. I really hope we see it, because I think in there is a really talented driver.
I'm going to go. I was going to say Doohan, but I feel like that one's a bit obvious. So I was going to go for a little bit less obvious one and choose Martin. He impressed me so much in both of his years in F3. And then he's come to F2 and he's shown the pace. And I think he's had the most raw pace, in my opinion, in F2 this year. It's just in the races, it's either an incident or just bad luck that's lost him points. And to see him 10th in the standings, it's not what I expected.
Yeah, he definitely needs a strong round. ART haven't qualified outside the top 8 all season, which in Formula 2 is outrageous from them. And Teo Pourchaire hadn't qualified outside the top 3 until Barcelona last time out, where he qualified 5th, which is, the consistency in qualifying from ART is almost a little bit ridiculous, isn't it? Probably the best we've seen in the modern era of Formula 2. The obvious question, but probably the best question out of the lot. Who's going to win the title from here, Jenny? Can I push you as well for a driver who's going to win the driver's title from here, and a team? What team is going to win the team's title from here?
Team, I'd put everything on Prema. They've got the two I think, strongest drivers all round this season. Maybe ART as well, but obviously we've said Martin isn't getting the points at the minute. Driver, either Pourchaire, because I think his experience could really help him in the second half, or I agree with what Lawrence said at the start of the season, that Iwasa could do it, because I think he's been the more complete driver across the whole of the season.
And Aaron?
Well, that's Fred Vesti champion confirmed, because every time that Jenny puts him down, he just responds by winning races. So Vesti's going to win every race from here to the end of the season, just to prove Jenny wrong. What I would really like to see is Vesti and Pourchaire put on a bit of a show and pull away from everybody else and have this duel to the end of the season. Because you can have too many drivers competing. It can be too much fluctuation. And that's something that happens in another series that I watch, which is Formula E. And we're heading towards the end of that season with 4 or 5 drivers still in contention for the championship. I think maybe having 4 drivers at this point, fine. But as we get a bit closer to the end of the season, I'd like to see Vesti and Pourchaire sort of turn it into a head-to-head, because I think they're the 2 strongest drivers in terms of experience and speed at the moment. Iwasa's certainly there, but I don't think he's got that qualifying speed that's going to keep him in the hunt. I think he's going to have more weekends, a weekend like Baku, where he just qualifies way out of position for what he's capable of and then loses a bunch of points. So Vesti or Pourchaire. And because Prema are my pick to win the team's title from here, I'm going to say Vesti. But on the team side of things, if Victor Martin starts putting those performances together and putting the points to them that they deserve, there's every reason that ART can be optimistic about catching Prema.
Absolutely. And I guess that just confirms, the inside F2 curse that Prema aren't going to win the team standings, that Vesti or Pourchaire aren't going to win the title, and we'll all be laughing when Dennis Hauger wins the title in November. So, no. By the way, can I throw it out there? I do still think that Teo Pourchaire is going to win the title. And he was my pick pre-season. I'm not bragging or anything, all right? But I think I was one of the only people to say Teo Pourchaire pre-season. And he's still my pick for the title. I still think he will go on to do it and bag himself a seat in Formula 1 as well. I don't know where, but I think he will. So, I think that is pretty much it, guys. Wrapped up the season so far. Aaron, just one quick word. Been an enjoyable first half of the season. How much are you looking forward to the second half of the season?
Do you know what? I can't wait, because there have been points where I've looked forward to watching Formula 2 more than Formula 1, because it's just so unpredictable. There's so much competition. If you're new to Formula 2, you have picked a good time to get into Formula 2, because it's just so competitive. The field in Formula 3 is super competitive as well. So it's only going to stay as competitive as this, unless we have a sort of freakish season like Felipe Drogovic did last year, where he just wins a lot of races and then can't be caught and just super consistent. But it's so competitive. You literally don't know who's going to win from one weekend to the next. And that's why we love F2. It's just so good. It's so much fun.
So much fun, so entertaining. The quality is so good. I think I said earlier on in the season as well that for me, this is the most competitive field of drivers we've seen in Formula 2 since 2018. Everyone, there's so much talent everywhere you look. Jenny, what round are you looking forward to the most between now and the end of the season? Is there one particular round that stands out for you on the calendar that we haven't been to so far?
It just have to be Silverstone.
Yeah,
I think every single time it's always Silverstone, Bahrain, Monza as well are always the highlights, so definitely. And Monza and Silverstone.
Absolutely. Yeah. A brilliant first half of the season. So much to look forward to in the second half of the season. And the next time we will be doing a review will be the end of season review where we'll know our winner. It'll be great to look back at all of our predictions pre-season and mid-season, and we can laugh at ourselves and how wrong we were. But that's all we got time for today. My thanks to Aaron and to Jenny for joining us on today's show. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you go and give it a like and subscribe to hear more Formula 2 content. Get involved in the conversation as well on our social media channels. We love hearing your thoughts and opinions, and it really does mean an awful lot to us when you do get involved. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.